Good afternoon. Back in the saddle with Bill Risser and Susan West on the Closers platform. Bill is my guest again. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks for having me back.
And Bill is our Vice President of Digital Strategy. He always waits for me to mess that up, but I got it right today, Bill.
Good job. Yeah.
And we're so excited and blessed, honestly, to have you on our payroll at Fidelity National Title. You've been with our company for how long?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, 20 years. It's been, I ran a branch for 10 years in Phoenix, Arizona, so that was a blast. But the ability to kind of create this role back in really 2010-ish, to be able to do what I do and help our sales team help, our customers.
You help our sales team help our customers.
That's what I do, yeah.
And what I love about that is it is our customers. You're part of the equation. So that has been wonderful. And we call the show today Back in the Saddle because Bill's back on the show, which we anticipated that would happen. Obviously, we knew we'd have you back, but we didn't think we'd have you back still in the COVID world. We thought we'd kind of hit the tail end of, and it didn't end, but we thought we wouldn't be back to phase one, kind of. Maybe some people are calling it 1.5. We didn't think we'd go backwards.
It didn't work out the way we thought it was going to work out.
No, it did not. Yeah. But I wanted to talk about before, during, and after COVID. Okay. And I want to talk about what were you doing for the company? And you obviously just touched on you ran a branch for 10 years. Mm-hmm. You support our sales team to support our customers. But what was your focus before COVID?
Sure. Really, for me, it's the fact that I love to learn. Right. I'm a very curious guy. Mm-hmm. So it helps me stay on top of what's happening. Because there's so much stuff that is thrown at realtors all day long, right? I mean, people love selling stuff to the 1.2 or 1.4, whatever the number is now. Right. People love selling stuff to realtors. Mm-hmm. And I feel like my job is almost to vet some of that stuff, right? Because when somebody says, hey, there's this great thing, and I look at it and I go, yeah, so how's that going to help you? Or does this
what are you talking about? Like a closing folder, a table, a pen? What kind of thing are you talking about, Bill?
Well, I mean, look, for me, one of them was Remind. We've talked about that a lot, right? Mm-hmm. So Remind's a tool that came out of Northern Virginia. A team built this great, we'll call it a way to identify opportunities based on some of the things that are happening in the market. And I've heard of, when I first heard it come up, I thought, another MLS tool. Right. And I love the MLSs, but sometimes they have a lot of things to offer. Right. Mm-hmm. But this one was different for me, and I've done over 100 presentations on Remind, right? Mm-hmm. Because the teams, both sales teams, recognized it was important. Right. They wanted to know.
But honestly, let's be clear about that, and I think it's really important for our viewers who watch the show and the people that have been involved with Bill. You had to tell us what Remind was. I mean, some of our salespeople knew what it was, but as a rule, even though realtors had been working with it preliminarily, and they had heard of it. So realtors were all over the board. Some had not heard of it. Right. Some have heard of it but didn't know what it was. Some had some education on it, but as a rule, most realtors didn't use it to its full potential, even if they knew what it was.
Right. And look, that's a big problem in the industry, right? A lot of realtors are not tech savvy. Right. Let's just put that right out there, right? Mm-hmm. So I think what I'm trying to do all the time is try to identify a way to show them this tool, how this tool works, in a way that they can understand it. Right.
And you know what's crazy, Bill? That usually, now this isn't offensive. Okay. I'm not going to be offensive. Okay. But usually it's kind of a younger, more techier guy that's coming in saying use technology, right? Yeah. You don't take right? So you are well beyond what people would expect you to understand.
Well beyond an age?
Not an age, no. That's not what I'm saying. But as a rule, we would look at you and think you'd be one of the not tech guys. How is it that you've remained so fresh, so current on such a hot topic? And you had to let me get that question out because it was a compliment.
No, I get it.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, you are fresh in an arena.
Look, I think part of it just comes from that's who I've been forever. Right. I've always been kind of on the forefront of technology. Mm-hmm. I remember sitting down with 𝐒𝐚𝐿 in his basement with one of the very first Apple Macintoshes. Wow. Playing with it and looking at it, and this is I was coding a little bit in BASIC and C+, and I just always had that angle, right? That thing I wanted to do. And so it made sense to me, and I just I really enjoy discovering something new that does something that's going to help somebody.
But you know what, Bill? That's a whole other show. Like, how to stay in the game is to stay in the game.
Yeah, it really is. I think if once again, I mean, the term lifelong learner, almost, I hope that's not a cliche, because
No.
that's what I am. It's
You make it not a cliche.
Right, that's what I'm going to be doing until the day I die, is like reading something or trying to figure something out, or know what's going on. And like, really, that's where the podcast comes from.
Right.
I want to connect with people. I want to find out what they know. I want to find out how we can work together in some way, shape, or form. And I think that's really what I do for the company. Is all those connections we make, whether it's in a session with a room full, or most importantly, I love doing a one-on-one with somebody who's struggling with a certain aspect.
Right.
If I don't know the answer, if I don't have a solution, I know 3 people that do.
Right.
And I'll just match them up, much like your sales execs match up a realtor with a closer.
Right.
I'll match up that person who needs help with the right person, even though they might be in Ohio or California. It doesn't matter anymore. So
your sphere is huge.
it's pretty big.
It's huge.
I'll admit that. Yeah.
So we love that about you too. So you saw Remind, and you decided. How did you know to dig into Remind? How did that happen?
So I went to Remind.com, saw what they were offering, thought that was kind of cool. I then had to call up a friend of mine who's a realtor and go, I'm going to be at your place in a couple of minutes. And I went over there and logged in, and we started digging through it. And I said, this is different. This is actually different. Now, it's not a magic bullet. There are 0 magic bullets in real estate. It all is just there's a lot of hard work to do what a great agent does. But this tool was going to be a stepping stone to kind of get somebody down that path. So it really made sense to me. I'm still a big fan of what they do. But there's some people that use other tools. I mean, there's lots of different options.
So you have to know more than just Remind. You started in our district on the east coast of Florida, coming to our team saying, here's the first tool I want to start with. And this was pre-COVID.
Fresh. It was fresh.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, what was second for you with us?
Well, for me, it's always going to be database.
Database.
There's nothing more important to an individual agent or to a team or to a brokerage than knowing who your customers are, who your prospects are, and are you really taking care of the not only just the organization of that database, but all the contact and all the interaction that you're having with those people. If you're not doing that, it's going to be a long, tough haul.
Is it cliche to say database versus data bank?
Your database is your data bank.
Right.
I mean, that's absolutely true. And we could talk to any successful team, and they're going to be on that same page. Everything is in that place right there. So that's the next place I like to go and really have that conversation.
So pre-COVID, you were very entrenched in the most recent technology that adds value to the real estate professionals in our industry, in our markets, and connecting with them for us as a sales team and an escrow team.
Right, and remember, I always have a sales executive with me.
Right.
I mean, that's part of the drill, and I knew that from day one. After running a branch and having sales execs work for me, I knew how I knew how important that was. That I'm not out on my own, but everything I do leads to a better connection for a sales rep.
Right.
And so we all know why I do what I do, because we want to have better connections and find the right people that we can partner up with and
make a difference.
And make a difference in their lives.
And then, so here's the tool, one of the tools. Let's talk about your database, your data bank, and then you were pretty entrenched with that. People were loving having you around. You also did some social media audits, right?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
And that was what?
So I've been doing those
and you
for
still do that,
5 or 6 years. Yeah, I'll actually, I do a deep dive into their online digital footprint, right? I look at their entire social media presence, all the different accounts.
Right.
I mean, I look at Pinterest, I try to find everything they have, right? Then I also I look at their website. And in my opinion, which is just kind of over the years of being connected to Inman and just knowing some really smart people in development, I can look at a website at a fairly decent level and say, these things you could change, it'd be better.
Okay.
And then I look at their social reputation, right?
Okay.
Positive, negative,
And
how's
you tell
that
the
going?
truth?
Oh yeah, I mean, sometimes it's uncomfortable about websites, right? Because I know this website's horrible, and 99% of the time, the realtor knows I've looked at their website. They look at me and go, "My website's horrible," and I say, "I'm so glad you said that."
Oh, that's so good.
Because I agree with you.
Good.
It's horrible.
Do you ever have the circumstance where they say, "Don't you love my website"?
That hasn't happened to that level.
Thank goodness.
No, that would be tough.
Yeah.
But I'd have to be honest, right? So you have to let them know what
So
you
you've looked at their social media.
And then I have suggestions.
Okay.
I put down 4, 5, 6, 7 suggestions on things they can change. Yeah, things, just action items they can take away from the meeting. And I've done 500 plus of those.
Right.
Everybody always loves it, especially the agent who's got it all together. And I sit down and it's just like, wow, this is amazing.
Right.
there's an ego stroke for sometimes, because sometimes people that are really good, they love that. But then, for most people, they just want an honest opinion. What is what can I change or what can I work on?
And then you leave
that.
with giving them something they can do differently.
Absolutely.
So all this was happening pre-COVID, and we were so excited about you being entrenched in our industry over here in all of our markets, and then COVID hits.
Yeah.
And Bill, we were so blessed to have somebody that was ahead of the game on technology.
Yeah, that might have helped a little bit,
It
right?
really made a difference.
The fact that I had a Zoom account for like 4 years prior to COVID.
All of us were saying, please help us with Zoom. So one of the first things we did
Look, I mean...
was you canceled, we have to talk about you canceled some trips.
Yeah, you're going to let me talk about that, huh?
Yeah.
So I'm in a rotisserie baseball league. Some people will know what that is.
I didn't know before the show.
It's fantasy baseball, but we want to really stick with rotisserie because it's different than fantasy. And we were headed for our 34th season. And the draft is always held in San Diego, where I grew up. And I was ready to go to San Diego. And I was convinced even on March 20th, I was going to San Diego.
Yes, you were.
Yeah, by March 23rd, I wasn't going to San Diego.
Exactly.
We ended up canceling the draft and actually have canceled our season of the Rotisserie League Baseball because of the weird setup and everything. So, yeah, I mean, it felt like, we're just thinking back to it's just 3 months ago, 3.5 months ago, but March.
But we were to the bitter end.
Oof.
We were having conversation about Bill saying to me, can I go and come back and come into your office and your
Our company had some regulations, right? If you went on a plane.
Yeah. And I was like, come on, Bill, come on back. It's fine. And then it was fine till it wasn't fine.
Yeah.
So you couldn't go, but we completely pivoted.
Yeah, quickly.
And you quickly were able to say, Bill, what can you do?
Yeah.
And you gave us a new list. And it started with Zoom.
Yeah, that it's funny. The first thing I found out was many people hadn't been on Zoom.
Right.
Now it's crazy to think that because everybody knows how to handle Zoom meetings. But I quickly put together a Zoom presentation. And here's the great part about Zoom. It had to be done on a Zoom meeting.
Right.
I was going to talk about Zoom, and you can't screen share Zoom while you're talking about Zoom.
Right.
So I quickly, did a screen recording of the entire walkthrough. And then as that was playing, I could talk over a little bit and help them. And we talked about how to use it as a tool, how to be safe, right? And Zoom, definitely has made some changes on that front.
Right.
But I did probably, 15 or 20
You know what was
Zoom
interesting?
classes.
People, we came out, started to use Zoom. By the time people became aware that there were some safety concerns with Zoom, you had already known about the safety concerns and the corrections to the safety concerns. People were so behind.
Well, I think, once I started hearing quickly about Zoom bombers, the first time I heard that, I go, well, I'm just going to password protect every meeting. It was simple. It created some sort of angst among some people because they had to, how do I use this password thing? Don't worry, it's built into your invite. Just, you're okay.
Right.
But they've now kind of. This tool was built for business to business, high level corporate kind of stuff. They did not expect to jump up from I think it's jumped up to 100-fold. It's a crazy number, and so they've caught up. But there's other people nipping at their heels. You got Teams, and you got Google with their tool, and so it's going to be fun.
So you started with Zoom classes. Yeah. What was your second class? COVID.
In new stuff?
New stuff that you started to... Well, let's talk about this, Bill. Two things.
Yeah.
New class that you created during COVID, but the second virtual class that you came out with.
It was Remind.
Remind.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Because I went down this path of what were popular topics, and let's just going to get them out there. People are going to have a lot of time on their hands, and so. But the remote online notarization was one that I worked with you on, and so I think that was great because that was going to become really important all of a sudden. Fortunately, we had already been approved here in the Orlando area to crank through that, so we could handle those remote online notarizations. That was important. But really, just for new classes, that would probably be the newest ones. It was just how do we handle what's going on right now with COVID?
Absolutely.
And then it was just rolling out another. There's a dozen of them. That's why I've got the laptop open. But I did RPR mobile. I'm a massive fan of Realtors Property Resource. And if you're not using the mobile app, if you're a realtor, you probably should be using that mobile app. It's pretty important. But I did an Evernote session because it's just another way to stay productive. I did a class on Google Apps, cracking the code on YouTube and getting found online, video editing on your mobile device, database data bank with Sean Carpenter, a great national speaker out of Columbus, Ohio. And then we brought in a lot of speakers as well, right? right? So we had Chelsea Pites,
Yes.
who's our VP of Social Sales. I brought in Steve Passanelli, who's the Chief Marketing Officer for BombBomb, on the power of one-to-one video.
Right.
We had Peter Schravamade from Box Brownie to talk about why every image really should be edited, and most importantly, every listing needs a floor plan.
Right.
Less than 5% of American realtors have floor plans in their listing information.
Oh, wow.
Around the country, around the world, it's never less than 75%.
Oh, wow.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
And they'll do them for $24. I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay.
James Roy is a broker in the state who did a virtual open house. That's one we added, right? The
Okay,
virtual
yep.
open house. And working with investors. Dan Stewart of Happy Grasshopper. He was amazing and did a great class on what to say next. You took it even further. We talked to the CEOs of the 𝐒𝐚𝐝,
Yep.
right? The realtors up in the Lake County and
Yep.
Sumter County, and Cliff Long, who was that's
Amazing.
one powerful
That was fun.
dude
That was
from
fun.
Aura. Yeah. So I mean, it just goes on and on, Susan. I mean, I've been doing stuff with all the local boards.
Some politicians?
I forgot. Yeah, we actually connection through Melanie, one of our sales execs. We actually interviewed and brought on our Congresswoman Stephanie Murphy from the 7th Florida District, and that was great because now you had a chance to have realtors get their questions answered about the Paycheck Protection Program
Right.
or EIDL, all these different things from their member of.
I think what really made a difference for Fidelity, Bill, you made a difference for Fidelity, 100%. But the fact that you have always been, as you have said, your entire life, ahead of the curve as much as you possibly could be with technology. We had some things that we could bring immediately virtually.
Right.
And that made a difference. And the Zoom being the first one, it was literally, how do we teach people how to use Zoom so then we can teach people through Zoom, right?
Yeah.
And that was amazing. And then to take our remote or Remind class that you were already teaching and say, we don't have to stop teaching
Right.
what's been effective because we've gone virtual.
Right.
So you created a platform, an education on a platform for virtual classes. We put what you'd already been successful with in our marketplace on that platform, and then we started immediately talking about remote online notarization, which is a virtual platform, and that was an amazing conversation. It was so cool to be on and have people struggling getting on Zoom and saying, see, that's exactly what happens when we do remote online notarization, why it doesn't work sometimes.
Right.
So that was great. And then our fraud class.
Yeah, that's true.
I've been teaching fraud for several years now, but Bill, you have brought something new to my fraud class where we can pair up and I can stop talking about practically speaking what's happening.
Right.
in
Actually,
the
your
world.
real life use case studies of fraud are awesome. I mean, that's where I think most agents get that real, sense of how easy this can happen.
But I have fallen short on the practical side of telling them, now log onto your computer and do this. I don't do that well. But Bill, you've taken that piece. So, and you can be in St. Pete and I can be in Orlando, and we together are educating people on currently what's happening in my closing offices,
Right.
which is so current and nationally. And then you can say, now let's protect you, and this is how.
Right. Let's go into your settings on all of your cloud-based stuff, and
Exactly.
let's figure out how to turn on that two-factor authentication. Yeah.
Right, and
Yeah,
I
it's just-
couldn't speak to the level that you can. So we've paired up on that as well.
Yeah, and I think we're going to do a lot of those probably going forward.
Oh, I'm
That's just my
loving
guess.
that. I'm loving
Yeah.
what we can do together. So I really believe because of you, we were ahead of the game. During, we've been ahead of the game. And what are we going to do after? What's going to be different that we're going to offer after?
Vacation?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
No. Yes.
Yeah, I think so. One is the remote stuff is not going to go away. I think we've all learned, right? I think we've learned as a company, because we had half of our staff working from home.
Yes.
Half of our
We still
staff.
have about 30% working from
Still
home.
30%. I'm one of those 30%, and we can do it. We
Right.
found out we can make that work, and we found out that at some level, some people might even be more productive, which is. I would not have thought that. I think you're on the same page with me.
No, we do. We
but
have
it's
some
amazing.
people, surprisingly, and then some people that aren't.
Yeah.
So we've really been able to kind of weed through our people. But let's pause there a minute. And again, before, during, and after. So before COVID, Bill was techie. During, he's been more techie, and he's taught that. After, he'll continue. But let's talk about our company too.
Yeah.
BCO, Business
Yeah.
Continuity. We were so focused on business continuity before COVID. We would twice a year go to a spot in Lake Mary where we would go with our laptops, a handful of us from every operation, to make sure that we could function away from the office.
Right.
And that was mainly for hurricanes.
I was going to say, in Florida, it's hurricanes. I don't know what we did before in Arizona.
Right.
Well, think about it. What if your branch burned down?
Right.
That's a business continuity issue. What are you going to do, and where are you going to work, and how are you going to make it happen? And fortunately, being a Fortune 375?
375. We were so proud of that. 375.
Yeah, we're able to make sure that training happens nationally.
So we've been doing that a couple times a year. We have high-level requirements to do that, and we can take care of a hurricane issue with our eyes closed almost. But wow, was this a bit different?
It was. I think everyone, but let's say it was different, but the company at a corporate level quickly came down and said, here's what we're going to do. I mean, it was quick, it was decisive, there was no wishy-washy in it, and it was like, okay, let's get this done. We've got it tasked in front of us. I'm not going to say it was the most fun, but we got it done, right? And we were in position.
But what's great about that is the company said, you have to do this. Business continuity is important. You have to create records through our business continuity department, but they didn't tell us how we had to practically apply that locally. So that autonomy and entrepreneurship.
Bias for action,
and and minimal bureaucracy, and which are our precepts, by the way. And people will sometimes give us a bad rep. Well, you work for this big company. We do work for a Fortune 300 company. However, they allow us to run our business at a local level, and we were able to create plans that worked for us locally.
Right.
And that was amazing.
And think about it, everyone's in different parts of the country. I mean, not like you, those precepts, right?
Right.
I ran a branch for 10 years under those precepts. Like, I did it my way. I did it a different way than anybody else in the state of Arizona. But it wasn't like I had to do it a certain way. And I think that's what really creates that atmosphere where people can be at their best, right? And they can succeed because they're working the way they want to work. And I think that's awesome.
We've had a great time with you, Bill. And today, Back in the Saddle with Bill really is an opportunity for us to just talk about what we were doing, what we are doing, and what we'll continue to do. So, Bill, I have to ask, what's next? What do you have up your sleeve?
Well, I mean, look, I think that a percentage of the sessions will probably be remote. I think that's going to be a requested thing now. That especially for realtors who don't have to be in the office anymore, if they can get together via a meeting, that's going to be great. I think the one-on-one meetings will obviously still be in person. I don't see that changing. As far as what's coming down the pipe for what I'm going to be talking about, it really is ever changing.
Right.
I know right now, for me, I think that there's so many people really pushing lead generation. The phrase has been around forever. But to be able to use the proper tools based on your skill level and your skill set,
and your business model.
It could be Commissions Inc., which we love, which is a great tool for generating leads and follow-up and all that stuff. But if it's a single agent, maybe it's a much smaller solution, right? But still has the ability to create a landing page, let's say, that you could try to drive traffic to with some sort of a social ad, or even just asking your database to go there, and then a little lead magnet that just kind of says, hey, here's this neat piece, you'll get this great piece of information if you just give me your name and email and phone number.
Right.
That whole process really used to be out of the reach of the individual agent unless they were extremely techie. Not so much anymore. So that's kind of something I'm focusing on right now, is how do you show that to that up and comer who is going to be somebody we want to work with in 5 years? Because I think you've been able to identify those over the years.
Absolutely.
You meet somebody, and how do we know?
You just know.
So how do we help them move a little quicker?
Let me just ask you this question. Like, I know what I know what I do, and I think I do it really, really well.
You do.
But Bill, how do you know where to look for the next what's next? That's what I think trips me up every time, is I don't know where to look to see what's next, and you do.
I do. Well, look, for me, it's Inman.
Okay.
It all starts with Inman, right?
Okay.
So people have different, thoughts about Brad. What he's created though is amazing, and I've been an Inman ambassador for I think 10 or 11, the Connect events, and that's where I see the newest technology, right? Even at the one we had to do in June that was done via, remote, they still had sponsors there, and I saw new technologies there. So that's where I get a chance to go, okay, this is interesting. What's this new tool? And then the question is, for me, is it really going to help build a relationship?
Right.
That's a big part of it. Is it going to start a conversation? Because all these tools all lead back to the same thing. No matter how tech savvy a brokerage is and all the stuff they know, it's all about having a conversation, and we talked about this last time, having a conversation with somebody and then starting that relationship off.
Right.
That's how you've built Orlando District up. That's what you've done. And it's amazing to me to see all the different, like you know every single broker. When your team talks about it, you've had lunch with them, you've met them, and that's very impressive.
So we'll just leave it to this. You're doing the same thing that I'm doing, but you're focusing on technology and I'm focusing on escrow and sales.
Absolutely. That's how it works.
So many takeaways, and if I could start this show over today, I might start in a different place, but we're really working with the Closers platform to just have a conversation.
Right.
And not do a lot of scripted stuff.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm going to say is, one, I love that we came up with today, which isn't new, but it's fresh. If you want to stay in the game, you have to stay in the game.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to understand, again, for me, it's escrow and sales and growth is where I stay connected. And with you, it's those things, however, it's technology.
Yeah.
So you're connected to the people that are connected with that, but then you're also have this side, because I've also watched people, Bill, go in and learn the wrong stuff. And you do a fabulous job of going in, paying attention, learning, but checking back with the people that are actually doing it to say, will this work? Will this, what do you think? So you're connected on both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
You're connected with the people that are creating these new things, but you're also connected with the people that are using them.
Right.
And a lot of people don't understand, if you don't have connection on both sides, either side individually by itself isn't always worthwhile, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, every single tool, no matter what it is, if not used properly, will never work.
Right.
Hammers don't work if you hold the wrong end of the hammer.
That's good.
So yeah,
Is that genius or what?
It doesn't matter what tool you have if you're not employing the technology the right way. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And if you can't, then don't use it.
Okay.
Pick up the phone and call 100 people. Go back to Mike Ferry. I don't know, whatever it is, but if you can't do that, there's other ways to be successful.
To do it. Talk to the right people on everything. Talk to the right people about what you don't know.
Yeah.
And what they
Absolutely.
don't know, and just you're a connector.
Right. Yeah.
So if we have to close with anything, our job is to do title insurance. Again, we're a Fortune 300 company. We're the strongest financially and with market share nationally. So we do that well. And we've demonstrated that as a company on a corporate level, national level, and also on a local level. But what we're doing every day, Bill, is we're connecting with the right people to connect the right people to continue to move this industry and our company and each individual one at a time forward. And I am blessed to be able to do this with you.
Well, look, I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be working with your team. So it's been a lot of fun. So
That's great.
That's good.
So back